Fast drafting my work in progress, day 20. Today has been a very productive day, both on the writing front and otherwise, because this morning JT and I had our weekly business meeting, which takes us from a half an hour to an hour, depending on how much we need to discuss. And then I managed to do both laundry and dishes while working on my manuscript. So I count that as a big win. It's always nice to get the chores caught up and work at the same time. The manuscript is coming along really well. I have 2 more chapters to get caught up to where I was when I took my break before going back to editing Restless Spirits Book 2. So with that in mind, I will definitely get back into the fast drafting process tomorrow, because getting through those 2 chapters tomorrow morning will be no problem. We do not have our weekly podcast since we already recorded one earlier in the week interviewing an author. So JT will just post that and I can just settle down and work. And since I caught up on chores today, I won't have that little distraction either. So hopefully I should be able to get a little bit more work done than usual. So I'm at, I ended today in chapter 13 of the book, and I have 21 planned chapters. So I am well over the halfway point in the book, and I think I should be able to wrap it up by Thursday. The only real distraction I have coming up is an online meeting on Tuesday, because I'm a member of a group called Crone Authors Together. We are older women writers who are supporting each other and trying to help each other market our works. So I feel it's very important that I keep attending those meetings because it is a wonderful group. Just started, and I think this will be our 3rd meeting. And I believe this is going to be good for all of us who are involved. So we are particularly interested in not only supporting each other as older authors, but we are also supporting each other writing older characters. Now, I'm not currently writing an older main character in my young adult historical, but my main character does have an older aunt and uncle who play a very large part in the story. So I feel that is that goes along with what I've been doing with my romances, where I'm trying to have multi-generational situations going on, because no generation really lives in a vacuum. And it's kind of nice to explore all the different parts of myself that I've been throughout the course of my life, because I can remember being a teenager very clearly, and a young mother, and going into the working world. I remember all of those different phases very clearly. So I'm not writing just what I'm experiencing at this point in time. I'm also going back and using the things that I've learned along the way. And I feel that a lot of other older authors are doing the same thing. So supporting each other like this is wonderful. And I'm hopeful that we are actually able to start really bringing awareness to the fact that there are a lot of older authors, not just women. And there are a lot of authors writing older characters, and they're not really getting the attention that they should, because we are so, at least in this culture, we're so focused on youth. So I definitely want to make sure I continue to go to those meetings. We have them only once a month, so it's not a huge deal. I think they last for about an hour. So that's my Crone Authors Together group, CAT, as we call it. And it is definitely a worthwhile involvement for me to have. JT had a very interesting day because he went to Comma Coffee to do his daily writing. And one of our local politicians was having a meet and greet there. So he got to meet her. Got a little bit more distracted from his writing today than he normally does, because there were a lot of people at Comma Coffee for this event, And also there was a protest happening across the street in front of the legislative building. So Carson City was hopping today, a lot going on. They're also building new state offices in our neighborhood, basically, about a block away from us. There used to be a children's home right down the street that was started in the late 19th century, and there were, I think there were two buildings. It initially looked like a single building with kind of a hospital type of layout, but they eventually, in the mid 20th century, went to a cottage type of situation where they had several houses on the site, and they would have house parents with a handful of kids in each. And at that time, I think it had become more of a troubled youth situation versus an orphanage. So those buildings are all gone now. JT said that they've completely scraped up the ground, and they're getting ready to put in a couple of very big, new, modern office buildings for the state government. Carson City is just growing by leaps and bounds. So it's kind of interesting to be writing about Carson City in 1863 while experiencing what's happening in Carson City in 2026, because there are some similarities. Obviously, state government has been here since the beginning, or actually territorial government started here. So that part has never changed, but the amount the community has grown over that time, I wonder what people who were in the area then would think if they could see it now. I often feel that way when I'm driving around town, because I know for myself how startling it can be if I go to an area of town I haven't visited for a while and see that it looks completely different from the way I last remembered it. So it's keeping my mind fresh as I'm writing about Carson City in 1863. Actually, I take that back. I finished up with the 1863 portion of the book. We're into 1864. And we are soon going to be coming up to the really exciting part where Nevada achieves statehood. And obviously, that's not a spoiler because we all know Nevada is a state. Oh, there are some interesting bits of trivia related to Nevada statehood that I learned, of course, at my job at the Nevada State Archives. One of them is that in order to achieve statehood in a timely manner, the documentation had to be sent to Washington, D.C. So it was sent by land and by sea, and neither of those documents were received in Washington, probably because of everything that was happening with the Civil War. So eventually they ended up sending a telegram to Washington. And obviously, sending a constitution by telegram is going to take a lot of time. It actually stopped messages that were related to the Civil War because they had to relay it first to Salt Lake City and then I think to Philadelphia maybe before it reached Washington, D.C. It was kind of a tag team event. And for quite a while, that telegram was the longest ever sent. I think it was overtaken when a telegram was sent over the Atlantic Ocean. And I think that telegram, if I'm remembering correctly, it was I think it was the King James Bible, which I'm not even sure why someone would do that. But that is my recollection. It might be incorrect, but I know for a fact that the Nevada telegram to Washington, D.C. for our Constitution was the longest sent. And the return telegram, once Lincoln approved the Constitution, the return telegram arrived in Carson City on the night of October 31st, 1864. Territorial Governor Nye Territorial Governor Nye was out of the area at the time. So I think Territorial Secretary Orion Clemens, who was Sam Clemens' brother, was in charge of getting the information to the governor so that statehood could be officially proclaimed in Nevada. So it was a big deal. And there was another piece of trivia. Hold on a second. Let me remember. It's completely gone from my mind now. That's probably enough for now. That's a really interesting piece of trivia, I think, and there is more information about that on the Nevada State Archives website. So if anybody is interested in learning more about Nevada statehood, you can go to nsla.nv.gov and you click on archives, and there are some explanatory documents on there describing how Nevada became a state. Darn. Oh, I remember the second thing I wanted to mention. Not only does the Nevada State Archives have the original 1864 Constitution, there's also the 1863 draft that was not approved, and there is a piece of textile, which is unusual because the Nevada State Archives doesn't technically collect ephemera. It's mostly documents relating to government. But in this case, it was actually brought back to Nevada in the 1960s, and it's called the 36-Star Flag. It was flown over Fort Ruby in 1864 when Nevada statehood was proclaimed. It's actually a piece of cloth that someone painted with 36 stars. Now, the flag did not have 36 stars for very long because more states entered the Union pretty quickly after Nevada, and then so obviously the flag would have been updated with the stars to match the amount of states that were in the nation. So this 36-star flag is a very unique item, and it is one that was on display in, oh my gosh, was it 2014? Yes, it was 2014. There was a big exhibit for the sesquicentennial of Nevada statehood, and we were able in Nevada to borrow a couple of documents from the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and they were displayed with the 36-star flag that flew over Fort Ruby. So the Nevada State Archives does have that flag. They do bring it out for special events, if there are special tours or things like that. They will also show off the original Constitution on occasion. There is a display case in the upper floor of the Nevada State Library, which is right outside of the Nevada State Archives. The exhibit case has a duplicate of the original Constitution, and my connection to that is fairly interesting because when I first started working at the Nevada State Archives, I was an archives assistant, and I was hired full-time, full 8 hours a day in 2006. In 2008, there was a budget crash, and myself and one of the archivists were both going to be laid off. An agreement was made. I'm not quite sure how they figured out the financing, except that they did have to give up part of the building. So in order to keep staff, they gave away parts of the Nevada State Library building to other state agencies so they wouldn't have to pay the rent on it. And at that time, the exhibit with the Nevada State Constitution had the real document, and it was in a series of special cases that were built specifically for the exhibit. They were attached to the walls with an alarm system. They have bulletproof glass. And at that time, as I said, the Nevada State Constitution, the real document, was actually on display for many, many years in a beautiful gallery. Is actually in the old historic state printing building that's attached to the Nevada State Library. When that end of the building was given up, the display case was moved out, put in the upper floor of the Nevada State Library that would be the north end of the Nevada State Library building. And I was involved in that process because the archivist was kept at a full-time level. The archives assistant position was cut in half. So I worked a little bit more than half time to keep my health benefits, but I was not working a full 8 hours a day. Now, my supervisor was a wonderful boss, and he managed to find me part-time work as a temp in the Imaging and Preservation Services program. So when the display case was moved from the gallery to the library, it lost all of the protections, like the bulletproof glass is still in place, but it did not have the security system that it had when it was in the gallery. So the original Constitution had to go back into storage where it would be protected. It's now in the vault in the state archives. But we didn't want to give up the constitutional display. So I was actually tasked with taking the Constitution. I was basically the bodyguard. I would take the Constitution to the Imaging and Preservation Services office, and I used an oversized scanner called a Zoichel, and that's a really cool piece of equipment. But I managed to scan the Constitution, reprint it at the same size that it was, so that we could put it in the copy of it back into the display case and keep the display going, even though the original is locked away. So that's my interesting connection to the Nevada State Constitution. That's one of the reasons I'm probably a little bit obsessed with it. Oh, excuse me. So I do feel that telling the story of how the Constitution came to be is very important, and that's why I'm so focused on getting this book written, specifically this year, as we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States. So it just seems like the right time to do it. And oh boy, sorry about that. My allergies seem to be kicking in again. So now you probably know a lot more than you ever wanted to about Nevada statehood and some trivia related to that. But I do get pretty passionate about that history, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of it with people through my book. And hopefully maybe I'll be able to do a few presentations along the way, because I would love to actually go out and talk to students specifically about Nevada statehood and the Nevada Constitution, which is why I turned this into a young adult historical. Oh, well, I think that's my cue to end the video. My apologies for coughing on you. Every once in a while, when the weather changes, it really sets off the pollen. And we were having some nice weather, but the Weather Service is now talking for snow levels again, down to about 5,500 feet. Carson City's at 4,500 feet, so it shouldn't be down here in the valley, but it could be getting close. So that's stirring things up again and getting me going, but I'm sure things will be back to somewhat normal in a few days. Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I hope you're having a wonderful day and weekend, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is the Life of a Writer. Take care.